guess. I actually give those away a lot.
Your sketchbooks?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah. I give those as like gifts to people, like Christmas gifts and stuff. Um, yeah, just the finished drawings, like or like not the stuff that I would put in a sketchbook that might lead up to something, because I'll just scan that and put it on Instagram, which is a lot of the stuff that I put on Instagram is just like stuff that I photographed out of a sketchbook somewhere.
yeah. So I think when we left off, we were talking about your Yahoo Messenger days.
Yeah, yeah, and you said something about meta comics, and um, that was what I was trying to like rebut the meta comics thing. I don't consider a lot of the stuff that I do meta. My definition is different. Um, One thing that I do remember that I did that I would consider to be meta was in one book I was telling the story about my second marriage, and so Tad Martin's telling the story about the second marriage, and he's in the story writing in his notebook about this going on. And I took like the stuff that I had written in my notebook at the time, and I actually just pasted it on the page. So you have
Okay.
him, yeah. So that's what I would consider to be a little meta. But yeah,
Okay.
that's a bad term. That's a bad term because metaphysical meta actually is like a um, gonna kind of encompass more than that. It's going to encompass a lot of different like deja vuistic um, things. Yeah, so people kind of toss meta around pretty willy nilly.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. It is. It's kind of like the Western appropriation of karma, because we like consider karma where it's like you screwed up, and it's just like, okay, karma is like over lifetimes, not an afternoon.
You know, Americans love to have their instantaneous things, so instantaneous karma is going to probably be as close as they get.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, uh, I'm kind of a half-ass Buddhist myself, but you'll never catch me in the temple because we're in Austin.
Would it be dangerous to be in a temple
Going
in
there,
Austin?
I don't feel like going there and just like feeling out of place.
Yeah.
I don't think there'd be enough Asians there to like, really make me feel comfortable.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I gotta get back to race. Why is it always about race?
when did you find your way to half-ass Buddhism?
I think that I stopped with Christianity altogether in about 2008, and I
Hmm.
was raised in the church and all of that. And I had started reading a lot of books on mysticism. And from mysticism, I got into metaphysics. And from that, I've kind of got my own, I got my own idea of like how things, what reality is and how things fit within that reality. And reincarnation and self-observance and just trying to be on a kind of an even keel is part of it, and that's very important parts. But um, I also, well, that's the Buddhist part. That's why I say half-assed Buddhist. There's also other things. Um, for example, I have more beliefs in like spirits um, that might be animistic, might be more West African.
Yeah.
That would be not the gods of the Buddhists, multiple, but then again, it could be considered to be gods. The spirit could be like lesser gods. It's all in how you interpret it.
Yeah.
Although
Um,
I doubt that the Hindu spirits, I'm sorry, I doubt the Hindu spirits would be the same as the African spirit, but yeah.
sure. Is that anything that you like share with your family? Because you said you grew up in a very religious family. Like, do they know about it and just kind of? Is it,
Well, I try to talk to them about it, but it's like my grandmother will send me like every Christmas she does this thing she calls a Christmas message, and she'll write down this thing, and there's a couple pages about Jesus and what we should do this time of year and why it's important, and sacrifice on the cross and this and that, and I can't tell her anymore that wow, that was a beautiful message of hope, and I can't tell her that anymore because I don't believe it.
yeah.
So at this point, if I bring up anything, um, it'll be a big argument, and my grandmother can get really loud and overbearing. If she hears something she doesn't want to hear, she will just start over talking you. Bring up something, a question that she can't answer, that's biblical, that she can't answer it. If it's like a fallacy or something like that, she'll say, "Well, I can't talk about that right now," and then she'll change the subject. It's like one of those people. But yeah, I don't really talk about the spirituality thing with my father and my grandmother because they don't get it. They're very well into that like uh, baby soul mentality,
Uh,
and they're very binary, black and white, right and wrong. They have ideas that are this is what this it's very hard to would be very hard to talk to them about anything that's outside of that.
what Christian sect did you grow up in?
Lutheran, and my but my grandmother was AME, so my grandparents were African Methodist Episcopal, and my mother, when she was coming up, was Catholic.
Okay.
But they settled on Lutheran because that's where the school was that I was going to when I was a little kid. So they all decided, okay, we'll be Lutheran. So
Yeah.
the Catholics considered Martin Luther to be a heretic. So she was brought up in school taught by nuns. So Martin Luther was like somebody like a Satan basically.
Yeah.
But in order to, I guess, appease, because my family wouldn't deal with the Catholic thing. My father's side wouldn't deal with the Catholic thing. So in order to appease, she was just going to go with whatever, Protestant thing was going on. And I'm not sure how I'm not sure how seriously she had taken Catholicism before to change that quickly. So, but can't ask her now. Who knows?
Yeah. And with your mother's side of the family, because you said that your father's side of the family didn't think very much of your mother's side. Did your mother keep in touch with her family, or did she kind of throw her lot in with your father's family?
Oh, she kept in touch with them. We used to go on vacations in the summer, go down to Mississippi and hang around with my mother's family. At my mother's funeral memorial service, my grandmother brought up how she didn't want that side of the family, and she never wanted my mother to marry my father.
That's crazy.
But comics. Let's talk about some art, man. This
Yeah,
is
man.
all this silly stuff about religion and things like that when we could be talking about drawing. Well,
Yeah. Well, it all. I mean, for me, it all goes into it. Like particularly when you're doing memoir.
I don't want to bore anybody. If anybody's listening, they might geez, when is he gonna stop talking about the Lutheran Church? But I don't want to know all this stuff. You know.
Well, that's what
But
editing's
hey,
for.
you lead. Oh, there you go. All right, keep talking. Keep talking.
Well, so yeah, getting back to comics, one thing that I was curious about is since most of what I'm familiar with from you is in the memoir space, and we talked quite a bit about how race affects you, obviously, like race affects everyone. Um, can you talk a little bit about, apart from the obvious, apart from writing about your life as a black man, how has your blackness affected what you do in comics?
I don't think that it really has. I don't think that it really has. I think that I might have been able to be more of I would have been more of a commercial artist had I been a white dude, but my options were limited with what I was going to do, so I just stuck with the comics because, and I don't know about where you are, but in Austin, if you're going to get into something like advertising, you have to know somebody.
Yeah.
Have to like bring you in. You can't. There's no ads. There's no listings for it. There's always listings for ad sales, but there's no listings for the creative side.
Right. It's much the same here. Like the work that I've gotten that has been of any like real quality, the more creative work I've gotten and the better jobs that I've gotten, it has been because I've known other artists who got in first and I got brought in. And I don't know that that's necessarily like a function of race or a function of like I'm just not very connected, like I took a very roundabout route in my career, if I can even call it a career. Like it's kind of pretend.
But that's the important stuff that gets you the jobs, that gets you the six figures. Every job I ever had came out of a newspaper ad.
Yeah.
And I would just follow up on that, and I never made more than $13.50 an hour in my life. I'm just like a working Joe.
Yeah.
I used to be a supervisor at UT. I had this boss that was he wanted to like make the department look better in the eyes of the clients. So what he would do is hire off or retire off Spanish-speaking people, and then he would try to hire on young people with college experience. And the thing is that was a really bad idea because he would hire people. They would stay for like the 4-week training. They get paid for that and they quit, or they would stay for like maybe a year or two, and then they'd go for something better because they could get something better.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, there's like all those, El Salvadorians and Mexicans and Guatemalans that are trying to get the job, but he won't let them in because they can't speak any English.
Okay, so you've been married twice, and you've written. I know I've read a little bit about your second wife. What?
The second wife was the one in Ted Martin's 6. That was the story Tim Goodyear and Jason T. Miles put out.
Okay. How long did your marriages last?
The first one lasted for 2 years, and the second one lasted for about 4.5. Interestingly enough, in both cases, there were plenty of signs that I should have quit early on, but I didn't have the toolbox to understand what a bad relationship was and when you should cut and leave. I had this idea that maybe I should just stick it out, because if I stuck it out, then I was really working on the relationship. But if I quit, then I was a quitter. And I understand now that there's certain levels of like codependence, and there's certain levels of like abuse that you don't want to have going on in a relationship. But at the time, I didn't understand those things.
What was your process of discovery that you should move beyond codependence and move beyond the abuse and recognize like a good relationship from a bad relationship, a salvageable relationship from a lost cause?
Well, that is for the viewer to like really get like the handle on that. They would read Ted Martin number 6, which is still available. That's my plug for that. But to make it in a nutshell, what happened is with my second wife, it being so tense and so emotional that I remember just thinking, if I ever single again, I'm just going to sit on this couch and watch TV, and I'm going to be really happy. And, and it was true. I discovered the reason for why I was having those bad relationships, and it was a specific event in my life that happened between me and my mother. It was kind of an abandonment thing, and so I was like trying to find that feeling of closeness to a female that I had at one point in my life, but was cut off and never returned. So in trying to search for that, I was putting up with a lot of stuff that should have, if had I known, it would have told me that what I was looking for wasn't possible with that person.
Right. How did you meet each of your wives?
Well, the first wife, that was back in my lonely guy days, and I wanted a girlfriend, so I would go on Yahoo and I would look for these girls. And I remember I got in this new job at Kachina, and I was decontaminating semiconductor tool parts, and they had like a really nice vacation plan. So after 6 months, I was able to take some vacation. I took 2 weeks, and I said to myself, I'm going to find me a girlfriend. What I did was I found a wife on Yahoo Chat that I proposed to online. Never had met her in person. And then she came down from Indiana to Austin, and we got married. I wouldn't recommend anybody because it was a bad situation, but yeah, that's how I would do.
And how did you meet the second?
The second one, I just come back from Mississippi, and I was looking for some kind of I guess again, looking for a girlfriend, but I was looking for something that would anchor me back into Austin because I had left in 2002, came back in 2004. So much had changed. I didn't really know anybody anymore. People had moved away. Everything was just different. So I was looking for something that would kind of anchor me to that reality again. I was down on 6th Street, and I saw this chick that I had known her somewhere before, and I didn't know where. So I came up and I spoke to her, and she told me that she used to date a friend of mine. And so I gave her my phone number, and I told her, let's go out, let's make a call. So she gives me a call the next day. She says, yeah, let's go out sometime. I said, well, when do you want to go out? You want to go out tomorrow? I said, sure, let's go out. Where? And I said, well, let's meet at the cemetery. We got a really nice cemetery. Let's meet there. So we go out there to the cemetery, and that's what I would do. It's just one of them horror punk things. Let's meet at the cemetery. It's like a romantic thing for a guy like me. That's how the second one got started. The first one was a coke addict. The second one was a speed freak. Better to have a speed freak than...
It's better to have a speed freak than a cokehead?
Yes, it is.
Why?
Because cokeheads will spend up a lot of your money. They're good at lying, so you won't know where that money went. You won't even know that the money had existed in the first place. That first wife, she was a hairstylist, and she would make big money, but she would tell me all the time that business had been slow. I believed her, until I figured out that, the whole cocaine thing, the whole story. It's long and ridiculous, and it's not meant for polite.
Yeah, I got I got that. But then again, I feel like I don't think that your work would probably appeal to people who are in need of polite entertainment.
No, it wouldn't.
I mean, it's certainly like I don't look for polite entertainment, so like that's why I definitely connected with your work, because it's very raw, it's very visceral, it's very unapologetic.
That's what I want to do. Is I want to get people to think about things. I want to get people upset about things. I want to get people to not be able to laugh something off. I want them to be so upset that they'll actually take time and go, that's fucked up, but that is a situation that is happening in the society that perhaps I should pay more attention to.
Yeah.
Because if it happened to him, hell, maybe it could happen to me. So I'm depending on other people being selfish and their own self-interest to kick in. So this magazine here, this is the new one. That's the one where that's the important one.
Okay.
That's the that I managed to get my poetry in print through that book. That's the trick. People say you can't get published as a poet nowadays, and they're right, unless you're a cartoonist like me. People are like, yeah.
There's a lot of things that we get away with as cartoonists, like things that you can slide in because it's such a bastard art. It's just like, yeah, sure, I can put some poetry in here. Why not? Have any of your exes like seen themselves in print? Like, have those stories ever like come back to haunt you or gotten you in trouble?
You know what's funny is I used to have girls that would want to date me just so they would wind up in a comic book later on. In the 90s, that would happen. My second wife, the one that was in Tad Martin #6, she liked that book because it was like so truthful. And even if it made us both look horrible, it was a truthful book, so she really dug it.
Oh, I was going to ask earlier. So the first wife was into cocaine and the second wife was into meth, and meth is better because at least it's more affordable.
It's affordable, but also it doesn't make you as devious. Cocaine is like if at least for me, you take a bump, you want another bump. It's just this like continual craving. You do a rail of speed, you're set for like, your 7 hours. You ain't got to keep like going back to it. So cocaine is like already in your head, making you like try to figure out how you can like get more. And that's
you got to feed the beast.
Feed the beast, man. and yep. So yeah, definitely. If you're gonna like, date somebody that's doing hard drugs, make sure it's not cocaine.
Yeah, I just avoid that altogether. How would you say chemicals have influenced your work?
Cigarettes were the drug of choice for the first 5 books. Then I started drinking alcohol with the workplace notebook stuff all the way into Tad Martin #6. And Tad Martin #6 was when I actually just stopped drinking. Started and stopped there. I think I'd quit back in 2005 because I thought that I was being upset with my wife because I was drinking, and I thought the drinking was the problem. But the alcohol was effective for a while to loosen up the thoughts, and the nicotine, and it's not even nicotine, just cigarettes. The combination of chemicals in cigarettes are just like miraculous for cartoonists for helping me draw. Yeah. But I quit smoking. In 2004. And now if I can get good hallucinogens, that works. That's there was a Lakeshore and a lot of Purgatory were written on hallucinogens. Well, actually, they weren't drawn more so, not necessarily written, because with hallucinogens or dissociatives, if I'm going to write, I will have to, what I'll do is I'll kind of lay back with my eyes closed, and then I'll start remembering things, or I'll start putting together a phrase in my head, and then I'll like sit up and I'll like write it down. Or if I'm going to like just concentrate on writing, I can write on hallucinogens, but not necessarily on anything else. What's funny is back when ephedrine was still kind of legal, and you could go to the corner store and just get mini thins that were full of ephedrine. That was great. That was the kind of like speed that was like, that's what kicked out about 120 pages worth of that workplace notebook stuff. And also wrote a novella doing that, taking many things. 3 when you start work, and then 3 at lunch. Yeah. And then you're like speeding all the way through your thing. You're doing your thing. You're thinking up your lines. You get your break and you write your line down. Then you go back. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out what which chemical compound will be able to induce a hypoactive mindset. Because, you know, I don't know if you know anything about like the hypomanic, hypermanic. Hypermanic is when you like have like you start freaking out and you're spending a lot of money on things that you don't need. You're walking around in the streets and you're talking to people you don't need to be talking to, not making any sense. That's hypermanic. Hypomanic is that in the zone thing that you get. I'm trying to like figure out a chemical combination that can bring that about for me, because like I said, the MS kind of like damaged. It kind of damaged like the part of my brain that zone was in. So it's real hard to get there now.
And when did you first notice that you had MS, or when were you first diagnosed? Like, when did that come into the picture?
The first symptoms I noticed when I got separated from my first wife was down on 6th Street, and I was walking underneath the I-35 bridge, and it was like my leg went to sleep, and I couldn't feel it. I couldn't feel my leg, and so I would stand there like underneath the bridge and just wait and wait and wait, and then like finally it would come back, and it was just pins and needles, oh man, it was awful. That was like in 2002, and that was triggered by the stress of the whole separation, divorce. There's a lot of shit that had happened at that time. I got separated. I wrecked my Firebird. Some woman ran into my 77 Firebird and totaled it out. I got fired from a job. There's a whole bunch of stuff that had happened all at once, and it's a stress trigger both times. The second time, I didn't have any symptoms for like 2 years, and the second time was with my new wife. It started again with the leg. It started with like a tickle in my back that went down into my leg, and then the leg would go numb, and then it was pins and needles. And then it happened with both legs, and this would happen, and they would just kind of go dead. I got this thing where my arms would go dead, but they would cramp up. So they would cramp up real tight for like half an hour. And then when like they came back, oh man, it was awful. Just like that feeling of the blood coming back in your like arms and shit. Whew, man, it was terrible. But yeah, I got the diagnosis in 2007. I first heard that I might have MS in 2006 during the summer. I didn't have medical insurance, so I had to do the plan that the city had. They have this kind of like poor people's thing, you know. I remember I had a MRI, and I had to go to this hospital to have this doctor that was on the city's program. I had to have him read the MRI back to me, and I remember I had an appointment for noon. I got there at 11:30. Didn't see the doctor until 2 o'clock. And then at 2 o'clock, I'm sitting in like his little waiting room. He walks in with his, he had his cell phone. He walks in, he looks at me, and he's reading the paper, and he says, see here on your MRI, it says you have some lesions here, not small ones either. You might have MS. We're going to have to do a spinal tap. Ring, ring, hello? And he walks off. As he said that, and then he walks off, and then I like that stress, like triggered some more shit. So that's when I found out. It's always a tragically funny story with me.
Yeah, you do. You definitely do bring some humor to the stressful situations that you've been in.
Well, you don't want to whine about it, you know. Right. That's the problem I see with a lot of autobiographical stuff is people either they're very happy about their life or they're whining, one or the other. And whining that's not a good look. That's not a good look for a writer. It's not a good look for a cartoonist. Harvey Pekar was a big influence because his writing was so tragic but so funny.
Yeah.
It was so he could make the thought of like getting out of a bath into an ice cold like bathroom in the middle of the winter, and you could feel it, and then like he'd say, "Up, gotta count to three," and then so he makes it funny, but still you feel that pain, So
Right.
it's
Who were you mentioned Harvey Pekar, and I can't remember who you mentioned earlier. Who are some other artists that you like? Like not necessarily like influences, but just what you read for entertainment.
I like Josh Bayer's stuff. He's developing really nicely as a draftsman. I like the way that he uses space, the negative and the positive space. Like his line work, it's like it's almost accidental in a way.
Mm-hmm.
It's too balanced to be accidental, but it's so free that it looks accidental. He's like a Gary Panter that hadn't rested on his laurels. I'm not supposed to say that probably, but it's how I feel that Gary Panter kind of like, he could have developed more as a draftsman, but he.
Right. And there's no supposed to say, like, there's just like that is fine.
Let's see. There's a guy named Captain Rotsteak that's doing this series of comics called I forget what the name is. It's a superhero comic, but everybody in the town has superpowers. The superpowers are used not in any heroic kind of way. They're just kind of abused, and they're used in like. But so it's a comedy. It's really well drawn, beautiful stuff. Guy's name's Captain Rotsteak, and you can find him on Etsy. Who else? Liberatory. Yeah, Ranzerox. I'm looking over at my bookshelf. Herbie, Shane O'Shea. Well, I guess it'd be Ogden Whitney would be the artist. Richard Corbin, young Michael G. Gilbert. He was great. I picked up his books at a comic book store in Chicago for out of the 25-cent box, and they were all from his run on, I think it was Quack. It was a funny animal thing, and he did this thing called the Wraith, and it was a takeoff of the Spirit, and he was really learning how to experiment and draw then, and it was stuff that I prefer to his Mr. Monster stuff, his later stuff. I really prefer his early stuff. Wow, it's weird because like right now I'm like just reading old stuff. I'm reading like old golden age horror comics. I got like a ton of them. I just downloaded, and that's what I've been reading. So it's kind of hard to remember. I know there's somebody I'm forgetting that I should be saying. It'll come to me.
And you mentioned an emphasis on draftsmanship, which like I certainly appreciate and I certainly see in your work. Did you study in school, or are you self-taught, or a combination thereof?
I was self-taught to a point, and then I did go to college. I did get my bachelor's. I got my BFA, so that was good and useful in teaching me, basics of design. That kind of thinking, though, like I said, is kind of a problem now for me because I'm trying to like stick to all the artistic beats when I'm doing comics, and it's really difficult to do. It's hard to do those artistic beats with comics because comics is a different language. If you look at like just your regular Marvel comics, they draw in a way that it works as a comic, but it doesn't work artistically as design. If you were to say you were going to do an illustration, you were going to like do like something, a painting where every element had to be balanced. The foreshortening on certain things, the shadows on faces will be not right. I'm looking when I draw, like when I was drawing Ted Martin, it was driving me crazy because I was trying to I would get caught between drawing shadows and contour lines. When you're trying to draw both, you get into trouble,
Yeah.
So and I would wind up scrapping stuff or spending 2 hours on one panel just
Yeah.
because I like would get into it and I'd say hell, and that and then you have to go in and just white out half of it. And it's a mess, man. It's a mess because I got like this training that my professors told me that I should not be paying attention to in comics, but I can't forget it.
Right. And what when you were studying, what was what was the intent? I mean, was it just out of interest, your lifelong interest in art, or was there an end goal that you had at the time?
I guess I wanted to learn how to be better, but the most of it was I didn't want to start working. I didn't want to get into the workaday world because that was horrifying. It was just a scary thought to me. I would see the people around me that would be coming home from work, on a train. They just looked dead inside, and then where my mother would be driving her car through the slush, and she'd pull up to the house, and it was like 18 degrees below zero. That was just. I never wanted to start that. So I wanted to put it off as long as possible, and that was what college was mostly about.
It's funny because I had kind of an opposite approach because I let's say I went to school now, I'd have a very, very different outcome because when I was going to school, I didn't realize that I was dealing with ADHD. So I couldn't focus. Like it was always like, like in school, it was like even going back to junior high school, my teachers would be driven insane. They would just be like, he does so well on the tests, but he doesn't ever do homework. Like he needs to be more disciplined. And it genuinely wasn't a lack of discipline. My brain just doesn't work that way. And, being able to work within those constraints now, I think I could actually do something with it. But at the time I was just like, I can't go to school. I can't sit still. I have to go work and do this stuff at night.
So would you go back to school if you could?
No. It's because what, I don't know, what would I do?
I wouldn't go back because there's really no purpose to it. I could learn everything I need to know from the library or the internet now. I don't, when you go into college and you go into school, you're learning the professor's lesson. You're learning what he knows. I want to learn something more than what's in this professor and what's more in the book that was put together by, I don't know if you know how textbooks are put together, but they're written not by the guy whose name is on the book. They're written by the cheapest writer that can be found by the publishing company. Yeah. That's how textbooks are written now. So why would I bother, going to school, spending that money? And then on top of everything else, it really kind of pains me that you have to adhere to that whole old school white educational, like if you're going to write an academic paper, you're going to try to fancy it up as best you can and make it unreadable. It's a game, and I don't want to play that game. It's not worth it.
Yeah, when part of what happened when I would go to school in fits and starts, and then I drop out, and then I go back, and then I drop out, and then I eventually was just like, I'm going to go to school, and I'm just going to go for these very specific skills that apply to what I want to do. It's worked out okay. Like I'm sure have a much bigger career if I'd done it in a more orthodox way. But I don't really have that orthodoxy in me. And during the time,
you're like a design guy. You were you went to school for what we used to call design communications, which is I was the fine arts guy.
Yeah.
So I didn't get the training that would have given me the head start on being a graphic artist for hire. Even if I started out as that, but then I looked around and I saw what was going on in the art building. I was like, I don't want to be one of these people. I want to be an artist. So I decided on that. My parents were like, what are you going to do for a living with this? And I really nothing.
I got the same thing.
Yeah, it's. I guess if you've got an ability to see, I hear the word talent, and talent's kind of a misnomer because talent kind of says to me that it's something that happens despite you. I think that the ability that you have to see is going to lead you to be an artist. And when I say see, to be able to visualize, to see through something through the other side so you can feel the shape like you're feeling it with your brain, that's what it takes to be like a good studio artist, I would say.
Yeah. So yeah, when I was in and out of school, one of the things that I kind of dug into was like this kind of early 20s romantic notion of being in the school of hard knocks, working like, shitty jobs and like getting into trouble and like, not that I got into too much trouble, but and during that time I got introduced to punk. And that really pulled me away from the track that I'd been on, where I, really had in the back of my mind really mainstream aspirations, where I was just like, at some point I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to go to school and I'm going to go work for Marvel or DC, and then when I got into this whole DIY punk thing, it destroyed that for me, because I couldn't read that stuff anymore. I couldn't enjoy it anymore. I couldn't bring myself to try to draw in that way anymore. I was just torn out of that world without any chance of ever returning.
Yeah, you have to have a certain mindset to draw that stuff. You can't be too woke, or else you'll like sit there and you'll call yourself a sellout.
Yeah.
What am I drawing this shit for? God damn it. That was me though. I didn't want it. I knew from the beginning I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
So that meant that I was gonna like just have some shitty job, and I had no idea what it was gonna be when I was in school, and when I got out, still didn't have any idea. Look in the paper. Well, here's something I can do.
Yeah.
Unskilled labor.
Yeah. Like I can either like do this art thing or I can go wash cars. I don't have anything else that I can really do. From what I've gleaned from your work and from what we've discussed, you definitely have like what would you describe as your aesthetic, like musically?
Well, I'm all over the place actually. I got weaned on like novelty records when I was a little kid. Novelty records, and then Kiss and Parliament Funkadelic. That turned into Devo and the B-52s and the Cramps, and then into the Misfits and everything else. But I right now I don't have any kind of like certain type of music that I'm listening to more. That's not true. I have like a collection of like monster songs that were written in the 50s and 60s that were just like they were novelties. I listen to that shit. I got like hours and hours of that. I listen to it over and over and over again. But other than that, I don't have a genre. I like good country, truthful country, no bullshit country, like Johnny Cash country. I like classical music if it has heart. Beethoven had a lot of heart. Mozart had heart, but he was very playful. So it's hard to listen to him sometimes. Jazz. I was into jazz more when I was younger, but hell, I still like jazz. Jazz is something that I can put on, and that's one of those things that will spur on drawing. Listening to jazz. Still listen to punk, still listen to Misfits. They're like a big favorite. Don't listen to anything new. I think that there's so few new bands that I have heard of that are any good. The record industry kind of destroyed everything after '93 by going with a formula that took the melody out of music, and it was just like you had a beat, you had a hook, you had like loudness, and that was pretty much what made your hit song.
Yeah.
And since 1993, there really haven't been a lot of groups that have gone against that. There's like Vampire Weekend that they're a great band that went against that kind of grain. There's different bands. There's not a lot though. So Yeah, yeah. To answer your question, everything that has heart.
Yeah. Did what influence did your parents have on you aesthetically?
Really none, except for my father, who I guess would be indirect because he was a comic book reader, and he always been a comic book reader. So that's how I got into comics. So I was reading comics before I could read.
Yeah.
I was like would have a book when I was 2, 3 years old. I would have a book open in front of me, um, and so he was responsible for me um, first seeing comics and having them always having them around. So that was I was just inundated with that as a form of entertainment and as a form of storytelling, and so much so, and it being so available that it just kind of got in my blood, and I couldn't think of anything else that I would want to do. I knew I wasn't probably going to be a TV star. That would be the only other thing. TV star or comic book artist. That's it. That's all I knew.
And do you find, or have you found that you got like heat, got like criticism or like a side eye for your choice in music? Because I can tell you, like you mentioned country. My parents raised me with country and disco because basically they wanted to make sure they're like, hey, we're going to live in Third Ward in Houston. Let's make sure you fit in as poorly as possible. We're going to teach you to talk like that. And we're gonna teach you to like love old country. Yeah, did you find like you
It. My parents, my parents were kind of concerned that I was listening to all that white boy music. In school, I didn't really mix with a lot of people, so there wasn't a lot of talk about what I was listening to. Nobody really knew what I was listening to too much. They really didn't know what I was about. When I got to college, and even up to now, I think the judgment is more coming from. There's more of a judgment coming from white people in that they expect me to listen to a certain type of music.
yeah.
And when I don't, it's a shocker. It's like, well, you're not like the other ones. You're not like other black, you know. Uh, they mean that as a compliment, but god damn, that's not a compliment, dude.
Oh,
That's
I've gotten that like and you can't explain to them. It's just like, okay, like that whole like, oh, you're so well spoken, like
yeah.
that's not a compliment. That's a put down of where I
Boss
come
tells you you're in, when your boss tells you you're intelligent.
from.
Now wait a minute. Now why would anybody tell you you're that sounds it's like they're seeing a dog like play a slide whistle or something when they like I mean, would you actually like walk up to like a white employee and say, John, you're a really intelligent guy? And so I don't know. I don't know. I've never heard that being said to a white dude. Like a one white guy come up and saying, you're a really smart, you're a really smart guy.
You're the smartest Caucasian I've ever met. You're a real credit to your race.
Either let's put it this way: either I'm a goddamn genius or they're racist. Let's put it there.
So we're gonna have to wrap up soon because I got to get my today's my day to be with my son.
Okay.
So I got to pick him up soon. I wanted to ask like where do you find community? Like, because it sounds like you said that when you returned from Mississippi to Austin, like you didn't know.
I don't have any community.
Okay.
No, I don't have any community. I got like just a couple people I can talk to at this
Because
point.
I know Austin's changed a lot.
Yeah, I had like a one really good friend named Heidi that she's like my best friend, but she moved to Maine a couple of years back. My friends Jason and Laura Huerta, but they're married and they're on the other side of town. So I really don't have I should go out more, and I think I will once this COVID thing calms down a little bit. I'll be out more, and I've said that for years. You can go out more, but I guess I guess I don't really need the company like I used to. More comfortable just being by myself now. So um, I almost would feel more anxiety going out now than I would before. It's hard to know what's going to happen in Austin now. If you go down to Sixth Street, people down there are just getting, shot and stabbed left and right, and it gets pretty much covered up. Nobody really talks about it. Yeah, you don't want to do that, and I don't know if I would be able to fit in with the punk rockers that are around now because, from my understanding, so many of them are either like trust fund kids, or they're like these, or else their parents were like drug dealers and all kinds of like weird. So they're kind of criminals. They're not like the punk rockers that used to be just like your parents left you alone a lot, so you had to do shit on your own, and so you went out and you found these other weirdos that were taught themselves how to like do shit. It's not like that anymore.
No. Yeah, I could imagine that. I had to where I was living before I moved to the Bay Area in Southern California. Like when I would go to punk shows, your chances of running into a skinhead gang were very high. Like, is that and like it just became. I don't go to a show. I don't go to a music show to stress out. Like I go to a music show to probably see a band suck, but also get to like talk to people, not worry about if I'm going to get sucker punched or baited into a fight or like whatever.
Yeah, that's the thing about skinheads is that I grew up in Chicago, so I be just about the sharp skins, the skinheads against racial prejudice.
Yeah.
The Nazis, I don't think I ever saw a Nazi skin, but they were around.
Yeah.
You never really see them in Austin. Maybe you do, maybe I do, and they don't say anything to me. Who knows, But I understand what you mean. But whenever I would see a skinhead, I would go to like the doorman, and I would say, that guy, is he cool, And then if he wasn't, I'd leave,
Discretion is the better side of valor. But yeah, there's definitely a thing I've noticed as I've gotten older that like I think north of 35 I just kind of became invisible. Like it was just like that's a parent over there or something. That's a salary man. Like I feel like with age there's a certain level. You do get a certain pass, and there was a moment where I kind of missed it because I was just like, oh, I used to be intimidating. Like people used to get off the sidewalk for me, and now like they just like push me off.
It's the opposite for me, but I don't know. It's like I've gotten more intimidating as I've gotten older. When I was younger, I was really soft, and I couldn't I couldn't really grow facial hair. I was really like delicate, but now it's like people. I keep hearing about like the Karens calling the cops on some black dude.
Yeah.
And the Karens wouldn't even talk to me. The Karens would be like, they wouldn't call the cops because they'd be too busy getting the fuck away from me, which is good for me, which is good for me. Although I must admit, that, light-skinned dudes, they don't get the same troubles from the cops as dark-skinned dudes.
Yeah.
Dark-skinned dudes get the shit end of the stick.
Yeah.
And, that's just the way it's always been. And it's terrible. I wish people understand that a little bit better. Then you'd have to get into questions of colorism and stuff, and that's another thing to put on top of something that white people don't even understand racism at this point. So how could they understand the colorism?
Yeah. Yeah. Colorism's a whole other ball of wax. Like that like the like you said, the level of acceptance that you get if you're a little lighter. It's also what really troubles me about it is how internalized it is. Like how like, one of the biggest insults like you'll hear is like, oh, that dark-skinned Negro over there, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, why on earth?
Well, I mean, there's nothing insulting just about saying that dark-skinned dude, because that's more of an identifier.
As a description, sure. but like it's not like
Well,
I'm talking about the context where it's used as like to denigrate.
okay, so they actually would say that dark-skinned Negro.
Yeah.
Oh, you did? But you're talking about black people.
I'm talking about black people, yeah.
Oh, okay, all right. I thought you were for a second. I thought you were talking about white people. I was thinking, really? Really? Hmm? Hmm? Here's one of those things that I'll leave you with this. We know from history that white males, especially, are prone to violence and getting what they want from violence,
Right.
and doing it at the drop of a hat
Yeah.
over little or nothing. Now, second part of that yin yang ball is, have you ever met a white person that didn't say they were a good person?
That didn't say they were a good person? Yes,
You have.
I have, but this person's a sociopath.
That was the coolest one of all, the sociopath.
No.
That was
I mean, at least to their credit, at least they kind of copped to like what they were about.
that's the thing. They're honest about being fucked up.
Yeah.
But if you have that darkness in you, and you think, I've never heard anybody but white people say, I'm a nice person.
Yeah.
I never heard a black person say, I'm a nice person. I've never heard a Mexican say, I'm a nice person. Only white people say they're nice people. And yet, white people are the ones that, if you look at it objectively, are doing the most damage to the world. So if every person thinks they're nice, that's probably the problem.
It helps. It drives the problem, and it helps like keep that mindset helps keep that circle of fucked upness going.
Exactly. If you think you're nice, you don't examine yourself. You don't look at what you're doing. If you think you're nice, you're thinking you're nice because you're comparing it to something that you saw that was much worse in your opinion.
Oh, the least examined lives are led by white dudes. Like there is no self-awareness there.
Yeah.
And you know, I've got friends, like most of my friends are white, and I've got friends who like are the exception to that rule, or kind of the exception to prove that rule, because like there's the awareness that like this is what they come from. They're aware of the difference between white.
That's why I was saying with the sociopath, there's like if you have a certain amount of self-realization, that helps heaps, man. That at least that will. At least that lets me know where I stand with you.
Yeah.
If I know you're a sociopath, then I know where I stand with
you. Yeah.
But if you start telling me I'm a good person, well, I don't know. I mean, do I take you at your word? Like, we've been doing for the last 40 years. Do I take you at your word and expect things to get better all of a sudden? I mean, if you were really a good person, wouldn't things be better?
Yeah, you instead of saying it, you would just show you would be a good person rather than saying you're a good person.
Exactly. Good people don't say they're good people.
Yeah, they just are good people.
They just do their good shit, and they don't. Yeah. If you have to say you're a good person, you're not a good person. That's the lesson it takes in the day. White people, if you say you're a good person, you're not a good person.
I think that's as good of a note as any to end on. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
I hope this didn't bore anybody, man. I don't know what I don't know how people will react to things until it's like I actually like see like comments and stuff. So I hope I didn't bore anybody.
I don't worry about it because I do my podcast for me and an audience of about 5 people.
Okay.
Who think like me. Like I'm not trying to like set the woods on fire.
Man, hope they enjoy it.
I'm sure they will. I'd love to talk. Love to talk again sometime if you're amenable to it.
Say the word again. It's the drugs.
If you're down to talk again.
Yes. Anyway, inimitable. God damn it. Anyway, yes, I have a very well developed vocabulary.
Yeah, you're very well spoken. Oh, and before I forget, what is the last book you have a compendium of your work that has just come out?
The compendium is the Tad Martin Omnibus, 260 pages, hardbound, and only for the paltry sum of $25 on Lulu. So if you look up the Tad Martin Omnibus online, and you can find it on Lulu. Anyway, take it easy, man. Glad to talk to you.
You too, man. I'll see you around.
Out.